All right. Welcome, everyone. Happy New Day. Thank you for being here with us for the Black Professional Series, Volume 2. We have an excellent assortment of panelists here with us today who are willing to share their experiences with you, share their insight with you, and then even give you a few insider tips along the way. Um, I want to just take a second to introduce myself so you know who this talking head is talking at you right now. My name is AJ Simmons. I am an assistant director at the University Career Center. I work with the program called the Peer Career Ambassador Program. I also have the wonderful privilege of helping to coordinate this Black Professional Series, as well as work with art students on campus. Um, and just a little background of our event series here. This is the first time that or the first semester rather, that we're really doing intentional programming with the Black Professional Series. And, we really have three main objectives, and those are to facilitate programming. This aims specifically to activate our Black students and those of African descent, to connect Black students with resources, and resources can come in many shapes, forms, and sizes. And then also to aid ultimately in the professional development of Black students at UNC Charlotte, as we are a career center and want to make sure that we're providing intentional, culturally appropriate, and critical programming that people can actually use.
Did he all freeze on you?
Yes, he did. I was just trying.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
All right. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Well, how about we can just.
Well, yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh,
there he is.
Nice man. All right. So on that note, before I freeze again, let me introduce the panelists. We have Erica Fosu, who's joining us with Vanguard. We have an esteemed speaker in our office at this point, Rebecca Edwards, here with us again to share her expertise. We have Dr. Demetrius Richmond, who represents actually UNC Charlotte in the College of Health and Human Service in their advising center. And then one who is active in the community as well as in the financial world here in Charlotte and beyond, by way of New York, Barnell Biename. So this is a wonderful panel. And the first thing I'd like to do for you folks is just ask you to introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your background, maybe your title, your company, and just a brief description of how you got to where you are. And I'll just for simplicity's sake, I'll go ahead and do this first question in order. So Rebecca, if you don't mind.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon now. It's 12:13. I'm Rebecca Edwards. I'm a human resources professional. I have been in human resources for 20 years, both in California and here in North Carolina. And after 20 years of in-house service, from a recruiter all the way through director, I started my own business, Infinite HR of Charlotte, now, which is going wonderful despite COVID, thankfully. And I'm also a Forbes Human Resources Council representative, and I've been published, I think, 7 times now on Forbes.com. So great to be here today.
Yes, thank you so much. How about Dr. Demetrius Richmond?
Oh, okay. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. I'm Dr. Demetrius Richmond. I'm currently the director of advising here in this College of Health and Human Services. I've actually been working in higher ed for the last 15 plus years, on student affairs and academic affairs, inside and outside of the classroom, undergraduate and graduate. I consider myself an administrator and faculty member. I'm very committed to student success and students learning and growing, and I'm very excited to be here. I'm excited about this topic. I was reading the questions and I had to stop writing. So I'm excited to have this discussion.
Phenomenal. Thank you for being here with us. Next, how about Erica?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Erica Fosu. I'm a university relations lead and diversity recruiting specialist at Vanguard Charlotte, North Carolina location. I'm a Clemson University graduate with a psychology and HR degree, a bachelor of science degree, and I've also got my master's in organizational development. I've been with Vanguard for 5 years and had about 7 different positions in the company, ranging from an IT recruiter, an onboarding training admin, some project management work, and I've been in the university relations space now for 2 years now. So happy to be here with you all today.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Erica. And then finally, Varnell Biename. All right. We may be, folks, experiencing some auditory or audio difficulties. So what we're going to do is, excuse me, continue on. And as we figure out our technical capabilities here, we're going to have Varnell jump in when he's able. But I guarantee you, whatever he just said about himself is phenomenal. So on that note, let's dive in a little bit more deeply into some of our other questions here. So real quick, if you all wouldn't mind, what one piece of advice would you say that you wish you had before you entered the workplace? I know all of you have, are senior professionals and have been around for a little while. So what one thing do you wish you had known before you got into the workplace? And this is an open question.
For me, I would share that I wish I would have known how to be open to new experiences. I had so badly wanted to be an HR professional, and those were the only roles that I was applying to my senior year, and I wasn't getting any of it. And Vanguard came to me and said, hey, we think you'd be a better fit for a role like this. It was a client-facing role. And I didn't see myself in it. And I was like, how could I do that? My career path was to be an HR professional. No, I need to be an HR professional first in order to be successful. And bills and student loans said otherwise. So I said, okay, hey, let me just go ahead and take this Vanguard job. And it worked out. I learned a wealth of information regarding financial investments that I wouldn't have otherwise known. I've been able to network and grow and get into HR eventually. So just be open to a wide variety of different experiences, see the bigger picture, and don't pigeonhole yourself into a one career that you may have fostered in your mind for yourself, right? Life has a very interesting way of taking you down a really windy path to get you to point A.
I think the thing that I wish I had known is that balance doesn't feel the way I thought it would feel. So I'm married, have 2 children, and have been a working professional for, like I said, 20 years. I think my perception of what balance would be that everything would be in place somehow, and those scales would always would be able to be exactly the same. What I found is that some things are in balance sometimes and other things are not, and then you shift, and then the other things are then in balance, and then the other things are not, and that is reality. Trying to attain that elusive balance where everything is 25, 25, 25, and I feel good right now about everything on my list is not really the way it always looks. If someone knows how, please let me know. But that would have been helpful at 22 to know that.
So much. So I am first generation, originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I come from a large family, single parent household. And when I got to college, I wanted out of the hood and I was not looking back. And so I always felt like there was something greater awaiting and I wanted to go and get it. And so I was like speeding, and reflecting back, I wrote down a few things, what I wish I would have known prior before entering the workforce. I wrote down, prepare yourself, pace yourself. I wish that I would have had more real world experience. I was so pressed to graduate, and I thought I was going to have a job the day after my graduation, and it all hit the fan the next day after my graduation, and I did not have a job. And I realized that I was not as prepared as I thought I needed to be. And I needed to figure out, what are my next steps? How do I take those steps? In which direction am I going? So, pace yourself. Things will come, but don't be so pressed that you don't really get the preparation that you need.
Terrific. I really, all of that resonates with me, being somebody who, really is just entering into my own professional journey. So I'm taking this stuff that you guys are saying and putting that in my back pocket as well, as I'm sure all of our attendees are. So in line with that, you all talked about, maybe wanting to be more prepared, or maybe having an understanding of what balance is, and what that can look like, and being realistic in that way. What are the challenges that you guys have had to balance? What are some of those things that you guys have been confronted with as you've made your way through this workforce journey? Dr. Richmond looks like he has a lot to say.
But I wanted the ladies to go first.
I wanted to see what if Varnell was back. I would love to hear.
I know, yeah.
So I think for me, I've always put myself on the leadership track. That's why I'm so excited about doing the leadership session afterwards. But my goal has always been, what's my next step? What's my next move up? And when you're competing that way throughout your career, but then you have, small children, and you have school events, and you have people who get sick, and you have, that type of thing. Oh, and one of my children has special needs, so I have to attend to that, and therapies, etc. So when you are trying to figure that out, and also trying to increase in your career and advance in your career, and sometimes you're competing against people who do not have those things, and that, so you have to work a little extra harder. Your nights are might not be watching TV. It might be, taking some online webinars or seminars. So you have to get creative, and you have to use your time extremely efficiently in order to get what you need to be able to progress.
Yeah, terrific. Juggling those different obstacles, juggling those responsibilities.
Yeah, for me, the challenges vary per role, I find. I think in my earlier stages in my career at Vanguard, it was trying to, again, in the back of my mind, I still wanted to be an HR professional. So like, how do I get there? And so it was eventually the light bulb click, and the initial challenge was not knowing which parts of certain roles I liked most and that I liked least, and piecing it all together to create a dream career. And so eventually, I want to say in my 4th year at Vanguard, it clicked, and I was like, okay, these are things that I need to have in my daily work, or at least somehow embedded in my work, to keep me engaged and keep me motivated, even if it's not HR. Right. I had to kind of come to terms with the fact that I might not be an HR professional, but what else can I do to make sure that I'm still having a lucrative career, that I'm making impact in my own life and other people's lives. So that was one of the biggest challenges. But I think outside of work, I was in school for the last, how many years of my life? 20 something years of my life. So adjusting to like in a real world adult where I'm having to manage like a new social life and create friends in this new city. And my hometown friends are not on the, we're no longer on the same page anymore. And trying to manage bills and expectations, that I would say was more challenging than what I was experiencing in the workplace, right? Because it was just new for me. And I was so used to the little community I had in college. I would choose the community I had back home in Goose Creek, South Carolina, and I didn't have none of that. And it got lonely. So I found that I enjoyed work, and I would pour myself into work. But then when I came home, I was like, I don't have much, right? I don't have kids. I didn't have a boyfriend at the time. I didn't even have a dog at the time. So I had to find myself all over again. Even when I had gotten my career and I figured it out, I still, to your early point, Rebecca, it was like imbalance, right? I found balance in one area, but I was unbalanced in myself. So within myself, rather.
Well, I
Can
wrote
you
a
hear
few
me?
things. Go ahead, Barnett. If you want to go ahead.
You heard me?
Real quick, if I could jump in, Barnell, if you don't mind, before you respond, would you mind just doing a brief introduction of yourself so the good people know who's on the other side of the VB?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So my name is Varnell Biana May. I, by way of New York, Haitian native, first generation here in the United States, got into the business through the death of my dad, who didn't have life insurance, and went through living on in New York and Long Island, not knowing I struggled until I came down to the South. And I got into the Bell College of Business, and they going into one of the economics class in the Friday building, and they started talking about, the rule of 72 and all this other stuff, and everyone was nodding their heads, and I really felt like I was unprepared because I was like, well, I guess I missed some required reading. So I go see the professor afterwards, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm sorry. I really was planning on acing this class, but I missed some required reading. You mentioned some things. Everyone seemed to be on the same page with you, and I don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, no, there was no required reading. I was just going over some basic stuff. And that's when I was like, what? I don't know the basic stuff. So that's when it shifted for me. I was like, yo, I'm way behind. So from there, um, just reflecting on my childhood, I realized why we did certain things, the community economics and stuff like that. And it was really a lack of having access to financial tools. And so I just made it my business as I started doing workshops to educate them on what I was learning here at UNC Charlotte. And then everything that I was learning, I got licensed in. So whether it's long-term care, health, life, investments, and I just brought all that back to my community. So here I am with my own firm because I just got frustrated working. And that's just a whole different story, and with the whole Black experience. And so here I am just being able to share and just, taking a shot on myself, which is panned out for me.
Terrific, excuse me, terrific right now. I appreciate you sharing that, and I want to add in that he dropped me a note earlier and said that you all are missing out on this tie that he has on. So
Yeah,
we're on behalf of the Career Center, we apologize for that. But would you mind speaking a little bit more on answering that question as well? Because you alluded to some of those challenges that kind of led you to start your own firm. So I'm curious to hear about those.
Well, so one of the things that I've seen in my industry, financial services, is one, I know it's increasingly harder for Black women. I will say that for sure. Because it's always going to be the good old boys kind of club. And a lot of things get done when you're talking about corporate settings outside of the job setting in and of itself. So if you're not someone that likes to go to the pubs and things like that, you're going to miss out on what's really going on in the office and opportunities that you may have. And one of the things that I've seen is that some of the sisters are like, well, nah, I don't like doing that. And you missing out on what's going on. And so what was happening with me was I was working, and we always understood that you got to work twice as hard to get half as much. So I'm killing myself, putting up A-Rod numbers, just doing my thing. And, I'm just getting overlooked. But I felt like I graduated from School of Hard Knocks. So my path to getting here was always the toughest road. But in doing that, it created some skill sets that I couldn't learn anywhere else. I couldn't get in school. I couldn't get from Harvard. I couldn't get because I had to learn it in the streets. I had to learn it while I was there. And so I'm grateful for it. But what it did show me is that because I have this analytical mind, is that I know my worth. And the problem with that is when you know your worth, you'll get frustrated with what they pay you. And so I just couldn't stomach that no more. And I knew I was better. And I knew the only difference between them and me paying and allowing them to pay me what they were willing to pay me was that I didn't know what I didn't know. And as soon as I figured out what I didn't know, I made it happen. And then I'll never go back.
As we say, ashe. That's
Ashe.
excellent.
Be it.
Um, yeah, and that was a wonderful response. I don't know if Dr. Richmond had a chance. I know you got notes.
Yeah, I just get so excited and I'm a little expressive, so just don't mind me. If I get too loud, just tell me I'm too loud.
No such
Um,
thing.
so I'll write down. I'll tell you one of the things that I wrote. I wrote down um, talking about some of the greatest challenges in the workplace and how I overcame them. I wrote down gauging the landscape and adjusting while I am evolving as an adult and communicating my needs. So I'll try to answer these with some context. So very quickly, I graduated and I thought I was going to have a job and I didn't. And I ended up moving back home with my mom in Memphis. And I could not find a job in broadcasting like I thought I was going to do. And I ended up having all these little tidbit jobs. I was an overnight security officer at the Boys and Girls Club. I worked at a factory. And so here I am with a 4-year degree working factory jobs. And so it really kind of was sobering for me. I ended up going back to get my master's in communication. That was an amazing experience when I started teaching and all of that. And I got my first job as a communications coordinator and advisor for a first generation low income office to serve first gen low income students. Loved it. It was an amazing experience. I was able to just I was a go getter. I caught things quickly. I was a great communicator. My supervisor just kind of let me kind of do whatever and get it done. It was great. My second job, it was a completely different environment. My supervisor had a completely different supervisory style. And we had a lot of challenges. I was a very vocal type A, get it done. Still can communicate and collaborate, but just let me do my thing. And so it created some friction. And so, a lot of times it felt like, she coming for me, she trying to hold her brother back and all of these things without really kind of gauging the new environment that I was in, getting a sense of my supervisor's leadership style, getting a sense of the organizational culture that I'm now in, understanding who the people I am, who the people are that I work with, and then adjusting versus just railroading again. Say, this is who I am, this is what I do, get out of my way. And so I had to learn how to, just kind of step back and observe the professional landscape before I just kind of jumped in and did a lot of things. And then at the same time, I'm getting more responsibility. I'm growing as an adult. I'm evolving as a professional. And so the growth that comes with that can impact what you bring with you to work. And so I wasn't able to really kind of step back and say, okay, I'm evolving and growing. How does this impact my work? And then after all of that, sitting down with my supervisor and saying, okay, this is who I am. Here's what I need. And being able to communicate that in a way that brings everybody to the table and doesn't put people off. So those were just some of the challenges and how I tried to work with them.
Yeah, terrific. And that kind of leads into another question that I'm curious to ask you all. You mentioned some of those challenges being, like the second supervisor trying to hold a brother back, that kind of stuff. What microaggressions have you all encountered in the workplace? And how have you overcome those things? How have you dealt with those things? It's okay. It's a safe space, everyone.
I can give you one example. I think one of the last straws for me, I was working at a bank here in town, and I just got awarded this territory. Now, this territory was underperforming, and that's the reason why it remained vacant. So, one of the things you guys need to understand is that as you're going to make it or go up this corporate ladder, you're going to have to be prepared to take on assignments that nobody wants, and that's just going to be it. And so, my suggestion for everyone is to know what you know, get as tight as you can be, and always not. Whenever you have an opportunity, kill it. So I get into this, And they start, they get a call, and it's not even in my territory, but they think that because this person is an African American, that well, let's have Varnell talk to them, right? Now, this particular county wasn't a wealthy client, so now I'm working in a wealth space. This is just $250,000 and up assets, and so they started sending me some folks that didn't necessarily fit that criteria. And the only reason why they was having me doing it is because they were Black, right? And not to say that they didn't have money, but they just didn't fit the criteria for the department that we were in. And I'm sitting there like, and I wasn't piecing it together. I was just happy, getting some leads and things like that. But then I started realizing what was going on. And see, they didn't know. They thought that they was looking out for me. They was like, yeah, we're gonna, this is great. Varnell, you can connect with them. I said, well, I've been the only Black person in a room for forever. I can connect with white folks too. So that type of stuff, man, like they don't know. Like really, they're ignorant to the fact. And sometimes, you just got to be strong and kind of navigate that and to the degree that you can. And then if you can't, you got to find plan B, whatever works for you. But that was one. I got a bunch of stories, but I can't name those companies.
Yeah, we can't name any names.
Yeah,
hip hop
needs some sponsorship.
Oh, that's funny. Thanks for sharing that testimony.
For me, I've had macro and microaggressions. It's funny because I can't help but to say it was at Vanguard because it's been my only job. But I have to, be honest because, corporate America isn't perfect and Vanguard is by no means perfect, although a great company, not perfect. In regards to microaggressions, from early on, I've always expressed interest in diversity recruiting, diversity anything at Vanguard. And at first, it was great to be pulled into projects to help identify diverse talent and all these things. And I thought I was doing great work. But then what I started to, and that was earlier in my career. And what I'm starting to notice now is that, for example, we were pulled in, or I was asked to support building out a diversity presentation for Vanguard. And it was going to be a subcommittee to help support this. And when we had our first meeting, all of us were people of color. There were no white people in this subcommittee, and I was like, wow. So all the Asians and the Black people must know everything about diversity, huh? And so that has been just like a reoccurring thing. Anytime there's something diversity related, it's like, well, Erica, what are your thoughts? And I was like, I can't speak on behalf of everybody. What are your thoughts? So it's, for me, two things that I've learned is finding my voice and pushing back, right? Just because it's diversity does not mean I have to be aligned to it. I shouldn't feel pressured to be aligned to it. And articulating in a way that's like, okay, right now I just don't have the capacity. However, here's some crew that I think that might be a good fit to support that I know that also have passions in diversity. Macroaggressions, the biggest thing I can say to you in regards to corporate America is keep receipts. If anybody asks you to do something, say, can I get that in writing? Because what I learned in one of my roles as an onboarding and training admin, so crew who have to speak to clients on the phones and give them financial guidance, they have to go through training to obtain certain license. And at the time, so each site, North Carolina, PA, and Arizona, had their own training admin. And the Pennsylvania admin, she transitioned off to a new role. And so they asked me, said, hey, can you take on her responsibilities? And I was like, oh, for the same pay, I guess. So I did. But the volume of PA is much greater than North Carolina, with them being the headquarters. So there were a lot of things that were being missed, but a lot of things that, I did work overtime to get work on. And I will never forget, one of the onboarding leaders said, hey, we need you to upskill our coaches to prepare these new hires, and it was a verbal conversation in the hallway. And I then got from my leader confirmation to say, hey, yes, please upskill coaches across all sites. I said, okay, great. I did that.
And then my other leader came to me and said, hey, the manager of the department called him and was bad mouthing me, saying how I was overstepping boundaries and I did something that I shouldn't have done. And it was the onboarding team's responsibility to upskill the coaches. But I already knew who I was dealing with, right? And so despite the smiles, the hugs, the how are yous, you have to know who you're dealing with. And I had receipts to prove that, no, actually, I was told to do this. And, my leader pulled me aside. I was like, why do you think like they keep, and it wasn't the leader that I was working with. It was the manager of the entire department. So they skipped 3 levels of management to complain about me to get down to my leader. And for me, I had to tell him straight up, I think it's because I'm the only Black person to ever have worked in this entire division. I am the only person to have the amount of workload that I have. No one else has this volume. And I think that they're intentionally putting me on a pedestal that I can't reach right now because I'm the only. And so whenever I make a minute mistake, in this situation, it wasn't a mistake, but anytime I make anything minor, right, it's like, oh no, take it up to the manager of the department. Like, why when I meet you on a weekly basis, right? So for me, what impact it had on me, it did put a bad taste in my mouth, but it opened my eyes to that. No matter how friendly and he, you can be with somebody, no matter how many lunches you can have with them, and how often you share maybe your personal life with them, they may not be your friend. And that's for people of color too. So just be mindful of how deep you get with building relationships with certain people. Do it enough to, make sure the work gets done, but don't be surprised when you get feedback or you're hearing things that may not align to the person you thought you knew, because people will, show their true colors eventually.
I just want to give a couple of tips. Can I just give a couple of, because I know we got to move, because I've experienced this a lot. And what I try to do when I'm in any new professional environment, I try to present a welcoming, hospitable, collaborative energy. And I try to build relationships with people. And they know who I am and kind of what I deal with. And so if a microaggression comes up in the conversation, I typically will ask for clarification. It sounds like you said this. I want to make sure that I didn't hear that incorrectly. Were you saying that? And then they'll typically start, okay, oh, no, and they're shuffling papers and all of this stuff, right? But it works because I've kind of established a working relationship with them also. And so it becomes an opportunity for a real conversation. And so ask for clarification. If you feel like somebody's being microaggressive with their language or their actions, just say, I just want to make sure that I'm not seeing this correctly. It sounds like you said that all Black people or, all women or etc. Is that what you meant?
Yo, doctor, that is so key. I want to say this is one of the hardest things that I had to learn because I love people. For a while, I was like confrontational at first. I didn't like confrontation, but the best way to navigate this, and you will always feel better about yourself, is to deal with the elephant in the room. Like, just don't you leave that situation you being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just address it, and doing it the way like you did. Some of the trainings I did, like at Sandler, they talk about dealing with, what you feel uncomfortable with. So kudos, man. Like that is so powerful right there, because it's gonna happen. And you're gonna be walking away like, now I know such and such didn't just, and it's better for you to just, because what you begin to do is, because you are training people for them, you're training people on how they can handle you
and how to treat you,
and how,
yes,
and how to treat you. So whenever you give consent by not shutting it down or addressing it, then they know they can go there with you the next time. So as uncomfortable as it may feel to get in that confrontation, it's absolutely necessary, so that way you can have your peace. Because at some point when you get tired of it, you're gonna be like, it's gonna be your fault because you've allowed it, and it's just gonna be unbearable. So then one day you're gonna be at the water cooler and they're gonna ask you if you want this mug, and it's a black mug. You gonna flip? Why I gotta have a black mug? What if I want the gray one? You know, it's gonna be a little too much.
And can I just note, I'm sorry about the technical difficulty earlier, so I'm coming in on the end without really hearing the question, but based on the conversation, I think we're talking about micro and macro aggressions that you faced in the workplace. So one thing I want to note too is, you know, you don't have to face it alone. That should be, if it's a good one, what your HR department should assist you with. So if you've faced something in the workplace, every single organization will have a harassment policy because it's par for course, right? Whether people pay attention to it or read it, it's still your working document. It's a legal reference that you'll be able to use, and your HR department should handle that for you. So you're hearing those microaggressions, like Demetrius said. If you feel comfortable addressing it, go ahead and address it. If you don't, go ahead and get HR. Even if you do feel comfortable addressing it, go ahead and let us know, because we need to follow up on that. That should be part of the responsibility of the human resources function, to make sure that all those words that are written in black and white in policy, that the organization will use for its benefit when it needs to, will also work to your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Terrific. And I think, you know, I heard a lot of things from that, right? And that probably could have been a panel in itself, right? Dealing with macro and microaggressions. I love that term macro, right? Because they ain't always small. But in line with that, you know, how would you all recommend that students, Black students, young professionals show up, present themselves, you know, when they're coming into their workplace, when they're starting out at a company? How should we show up? What advice do you have for us?
So I have a slide on that in my session breakout, but I'll talk about it a little bit here. I really, you know, as someone who has sat through thousands of interviews, I just really beg of you to bring your A game. Understand that when you walk in the room, there is always competition. There are always other people who have a resume that look almost exactly like yours. You have to make yourself stand out. Make sure you show what's unique about you. Make sure that you've conducted yourself, whether it's in school, in student organizations, if it's the Student Marketing Association, fraternities and sororities, whatever, that you've had a chance to be a leader. Make sure you walk in the room with that unique skill set that you bring. But please always remember to stay on your A game, and not just say, you know what, I don't care, I'm just gonna, go to work in these pajama pants. I've seen it, sadly. So many different stories, but I just use that as one. But just remembering that is important.
I agree with you, Rebecca. Just prepare. Preparation is key. I can't tell you how many students that I engage with on a weekly, daily basis are just not prepared. And it's simple things, right? You don't know what Vanguard is? Do your research. And then once you get into the organization, right, and you have a meeting on the books and you don't see an agenda, ask for the agenda so that you can come prepared, knowing what to talk about, and you can contribute your ideas to the conversation. I've seen countless interns even come into the organization and they don't use their voice. We want to hear your perspective. We want you to contribute while you're at the table. So don't sit back and just, be a silent player. Come prepared, give your ideas. And it's okay, right? You may not have may not know how to formulate questions, or you may not have the full context of the situation and maybe asking something that was already addressed in a prior meeting that you weren't a part of, but it's okay. Like, still contribute. For me, that's something I had to learn very quickly, because I was at certain tables and I was just observing, right? I wasn't saying nothing. I was just observing, trying to find my place to jump in, because there were so many powerful voices just, talking right after each other. And eventually I just had to kind of follow suit and say what I think and just kind of jump straight in, right? So you can't wait for that green light all the time to be given to you to, present yourself, or sometimes you just got to take it, especially when you're at that table. So I especially agree with your point, Rebecca.
Yeah, just to echo that as well, I think the preparation is absolutely key. Knowing about the company is important. And I remember I failed that test one time trying to get an internship with IMG. It was my stint at becoming a sports agent. And I got on with this sports marketing firm, got this interview, and I was so disgruntled because it was the office that I went to focused on NASCAR, and I couldn't understand the four left turns and why that was so appealing. But and so I just kind of just dogged the interview. And then I came back to this mentor and he asked me about it. And I was so disgruntled. And I said, yeah, he asked me the name of the company. And I was like, I don't know, some MG company. And he was like, oh, wait a minute. I hope you're not talking about IMG. I said, I think so. And he said, man, you know, they're the biggest sports marketing firm in the world, right? I was like, no. So then I took out the corporate report that they gave me and I saw these, you know, A-Rod and Manning and all these people. And I said, say it ain't so. That he opened the website and he was like, yeah, that was the company. I felt so sick because I just bombed it. But they had another office uptown. And I wind up doing my research, read the book of the owner of the company. So that next interview, which was like a couple of months later, I killed it. I told them things about the company they didn't realize. And it was just like, okay, well, all right, you're going to sit here. And then I would say this, coming prepared, because, you know, in college, typically, many people don't have suits. What I would suggest, if you're on the 4-year or the 5-year program, one of those opportunities when you get that refund check, get a good suit.
Yes.
Get a good one. Don't go in there with the you know, the golf pants and just get yourself a good suit so that way you can feel like you winning. You go in there with this. I always feel like I'm winning when I'm stepping out. I put it on, right? It's unfortunately I can't see this tie. You be like, you know what? You're right. So. But it gives me the attitude like, yo, not only do I belong here, I belong in that corner office. Stop playing. So one of these times when you get that refund check, don't run for the J's. Just get yourself a good suit. You're gonna thank me for it.
I wrote a lot, you all, so I'm just gonna try to read what I wrote. I'm gonna start out here though, and you know, some of you all may or may not agree with this, but I'm gonna say it. I wrote down, it's all a game. It is a game. And there are systems and mechanisms and cultures that are in place that are designed to keep us out. We deserve to be there. We are there. We aren't going anywhere. We will be at the table and we will be so on point that we'll run circles around you if we have to. But it is a game. And I wrote, it's important that you learn the game and that you learn the systems. And then you decide how you want to play it. It's a game. But with that, what I've tried to do, and I think it's benefited me, is every day I try to be present, like present in the moment, positive, try to exude a spirit of what can we do today to make an impact? What can I learn today? How can I add to the mission of this organization in a pleasant, positive, innovative, collaborative way? And I think that will really people begin to recognize that, and they'll want to work with you, and they'll want to give you things to do, and they'll want to promote you. But it really is about your mindset, and you know, be prompt, be ahead of time. You know, be the first one in the room. And if people come in, introduce yourself. Hey, how are you? I'm Demetrius. What do you do? I do this. Take initiative. You know, don't do too much and then get burned out. But it really is about the energy and the initiative and the positive presence that you bring with you. Now, the one thing I'll say to conclude all of this, I just pulled it up. I heard Janelle Monáe make this quote in one of her speeches. She said, I come in peace, but I mean business.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important to have in your spirit also.
Yeah, I like what you said about, you know, being on time. Whenever there's an interview or anything like that, I always go maybe the day or two before, make sure I know the landscape, I know how to get there. There've been a couple of times where I've met people at lunch, and so when I came in for the interview, when they was walking me through, and I knew a couple of people that I knew because I had lunch with them, Hey, what's going on, John? What's up with Matt? What's going on? And it was like, oh, okay. Like I was like already part of the culture. So now when you're, psychologically, when you're going in there and you already know people, like you shaking hands, they can already see you because you already see, you already know people. So that's one of the things that I've used. Like I tend to believe that I interview very well, just because certain things that I do, certain questions that I'll ask of the HR person, and certain things that you should know. But I would say that if you don't do your research and if you don't understand the culture of the environment that you're trying to work in, you're doing yourself a disservice when you get in there.
Can I say one more thing? I wrote down one more thing. I wrote down knowledge plus experience plus reflection equals wisdom. I'll read it again. Knowledge, education, plus experience in the real world, plus reflection, introspection on who I am, brings about wisdom. We want to strive for wisdom. And so just keep that in mind.
Shay.
Ashe. And again, that is so be it. In the Akan language, I believe, Erica, or Ashanti. So that being said, I want to double back to something that Varnell shared about professional clothing. I would be remiss if I didn't say this. The University Career Center has a professional clothing closet where all students can get professional clothing free of charge. Our very own Karen Arrington, who has helped to pull this event together, manages that program. She does a wonderful job. If you have any or questions about that program, definitely check us out at career.uncc.edu. So what I want to kind of, I guess, close with here is one final question. And that question is, what is the most important thing for you to consider as you think about your identity as a Black person in the workplace?
So for me, and this is sort of the theme of my breakout session, I'm just giving away all my stuff, right? But I think one of the most important themes or advice I can give is to not limit yourself. I have never placed limits on myself. And that's, where I live, what jobs I'll go to. When my very first job took me from New Orleans, Louisiana to Los Angeles, California alone. I didn't know anybody there, but it was with one of the top 100 companies in the United States. So yeah, I'm going. I'm not going to stay back because, I won't be close to family or nobody's ever done it. Don't place limits on yourself. And you can go as far as you want to go.
I would say that to consider the legacy that you're creating while you're working there, chances are, if that may not be the only job that you get, right? You're hoping you're going to move up from there, or you may wind up leaving and coming back. So you want to be mindful of what you're doing and how it's being perceived. I would always say, just always operate with a spirit of excellence. And as difficult as it may be, you just want to keep that bar. You want to set the bar high for yourself, and just keep aiming for it. Keep aiming for it. Keep aiming for it. And the people, they're gonna see your grind and they're gonna appreciate that. But be mindful of that. Be mindful of that, because once again, one of the greatest lessons that I learned as I got out of school was that I wasn't just competing with everyone that was graduating UNC Charlotte. I was competing against everyone that was in my field. Forget just Charlotte. People will move from New York to California to come here in my field, and I have to, show myself again. So that's what I would share.
I totally agree with that, Vernell. I would add to that, it's all about your brand. Focus on building a brand of excellence, a brand of positivity, of innovation. And that's what my presentation will be on. And your brand will speak for yourself even when you're not in the room. And that's something that I have been very blessed with, is I've built a brand where I'll get a message saying, hey, we were talking about you in this meeting. Would you be interested in this project? So just make sure that in all the work that you do, you're giving it your all, giving it your best foot forward so that your brand can speak for itself.
As you can tell, I'm really big on like phrases and mantras and sayings. And so what I've seen and learned is particularly Black people, and I've been like a Black male in leadership positions, like the only Black male in the entire building with an entire staff of like white women. And I've been able to do well because I really have a sense of self and who I am. And so, but I've noticed sometimes a lot of us, we don't feel worthy. We second guess ourselves. And so I wrote, I am prepared. I belong here. I matter. Regardless of how the situation works out, you get the job, you don't. You get fired, you don't. You get promoted, you don't. I am prepared. I belong here. I matter. I am a Black person in this country. I am prepared. I belong here. I matter. So when I come in the room, when I sit down at the table, my energy will exude that.
Ashe, what a wonderful, amazing, spectacular panel. I want to take this time to thank all of you for making yourselves available and being here. Though we cannot see all of the millions in attendance of this panel here, I'm sure that everybody is giving you a standing ovation along with me. You all shared such wonderful insight. At this point in time, we're going to transition from the panel portion of the Black Professional Volume 2 into our sessions. Our speakers have kind of referred to those sessions that they'll be leading. So I'm sure we have attendees that are excited to get in there and interact a little bit more directly. I encourage you all to turn your cameras on when you get in the sessions. Again, to navigate there, you'll go to the sessions button on the left. It should be a red button that says now. And then once you click on that button, you'll be able to then go into you'll be able to go into the different panelists' sessions and engage with them more around the topics that they had mentioned earlier, such as your branding and being a leader in these positions. So thank you all again. This is going to be our last time here on the stage, so I really appreciate you all. And please, everyone, go ahead and engage with our wonderful panelists. Asante Sana, many thanks.
Thank you.